2025 was the year where fiction finally flattened facts, as man and machine competed to inflict the fake on the scroll-stuck cattle class. It was a big year for anyone who loves to hate, as there was enough rage bait to make even the robots rage quit. Good taste was made to wait, while we drowned in brain-dead debate and shooters refused to hesitate. Affairs ran out of steam, planes ran out of tarmac, and spectacle overtook substance in a race to the bottom of the barrel. We were told time and again not to believe what our eyes had seen, and sometimes for good reason. Pics or it didn't happen became pics that didn't happen, as the concept of photographic proof ended its 200-year hot streak. Borders got brutal. Neighbouring countries took shots, took shelter, and simmering tensions boiled over into blistering blowouts. Riots were as commonplace as they were confusing, when decentralised, leaderless uprisings started online and ended at the palace gates.
Mr. President, what are you doing up there?
But really, the United States stole the show this year, as the newly elected Tumor-in-Chief metastasized with a mean case of main character syndrome. Everything was indeed computer, as big tech got soapy and spherical. Simultaneously, social media standards have fallen off faster than a suicidal sprinter visiting the Grand Canyon, as platforms opened their sluice gates, allowing AI-generated sewage and poisonous propaganda to pass through untreated. I have to say, it's been a difficult year to do this specific job. The internet info gutter has gotten so thoroughly clogged that I've had to roll up my sleeve and plunge my arm to the elbow. But there is gold in these gutters too. There is hope buried deep, and there are laughs to be stolen in even its darkest, crustiest crevices. You can only cure the disease by studying the sickness. So with that in mind, let's go back to where it all began in January 2025.
3, 2,
1. January was a great month for smoke inhalation. Sidewalks smoldered, wildfires burned, and famous figures went scorched earth. On January 1st, a symbolic piece of foreshadowing occurred that was so ham-fisted that if you wrote it into a screenplay, they'd fire you out of a cannon into the Hollywood sign. A Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside the international Las Vegas Trump Hotel. The perpetrator apparently used generative AI to plan his attack on the Nevada parking spot, where he killed no one but himself.
The kind of masculine energy, I think, is good. And obviously, society has plenty of that, but I think corporate culture was really trying to get away from it.
On the 7th, Mark Zuckerberg appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience to explain that the corporate world was getting pussified by too many lady feelings.
I think people just felt like the fact checkers were too biased.
This was all part of Mark's suck-up strategy to placate the incoming Trump administration. Yes, Meta Platforms would be going full free speech mode by scrapping its US fact-checking program, allowing their geriatric users to post whatever mad opinion they were cogent enough to dribble out of their face hole. But all eyes were on LA in January. The first major blaze started in the Pacific Palisades on the 7th. The flames made their Hollywood debut in this photo, taken 3 minutes after the fires were officially reported. In just 48 hours, another 7 fires had started in nearby neighborhoods, making downtown LA look like its safer, less evil sister city of Mordor Middle-earth. LA residents were confused and shocked. How could this happen in the one place where it always happens? If they were still watching TV, they also learned that LA had a mayor, who was on hand to explain what to do if you were feeling the heat. If only someone had typed the link into her speech.
Right now, if you need help, emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL.
For a moment, it looked like it was every man, woman, and horse out for themselves. And when the cavalry did arrive, firefighters found themselves ill-equipped to keep the fires from growing.
What in the world? The firemen don't have hoses, so they're literally using purses? Women's handbags?
Over 200,000 people evacuated, leading to the kind of blocked freeways that LA residents hadn't seen since the previous morning. But instead of looking out their driver's side window and watching a guy in a full mascot costume doing the Fenty fold in a Carl Jr.'s, they saw celebrities weeping outside the ashen remains of their second home. That Carl Jr. thing, I actually saw that in LA for real. Anyway, yes, a handful of nobodies might have watched their rental property burn to a crisp, but the real tragedy was the billions of dollars worth of property damage inflicted on the people who appeared on a movie poster 30 years ago.
The number of celebrities who have lost their multi-million-dollar homes in the Palisades fire. We can tell you that Paris Hilton's Malibu mansion burned to the ground, and so did the homes of actors Billy Crystal, Eugene Levy, John Goodman, Cameron Matheson, Ricky Lake, Anna Faris, and Adam Brody.
The fires weren't fully contained until the end of the month, but they reached their peak on the 11th, both in terms of square footage and symbolic potency. But at the exact same time, there was another red scare that was getting internet users steamed in mid-January.
The nation's highest court tonight on the brink of deciding whether to uphold a controversial ban of TikTok in the U.S., a ban already approved by Congress and signed into law by President Biden.
For a hot second, it looked like time was up for TikTok. In 2024, the Biden administration had set the 19th of January as the deadline for the platform's sale, which would have forced TikTok's Chinese parent company to sell the platform to a non-adversarial American owner. Predictably, this inspired cries of free speech violations, although the whiniest cries came from creators who were suckling at the teat of TikTok's monetization program.
Fascist countries ban apps. Fascist countries ban websites. Fascist countries ban apps and websites.
In protest, creators and commentators encouraged users to migrate to a hitherto unknown app known as RedNote, aka Xiaohongshu, literally translated as Little Red Book. Yes, named after the book of Mao's words that radicalized teenagers during the Cultural Revolution, which, if you do need a quick history lesson, the Cultural Revolution was a fanatical period of mass violence and extreme censorship as Chairman Mao directed Chinese youth to purge the country of any remaining anti-communist sentiment. Ironic, considering that the RedNote app was mostly used by Chinese metropolitan women to show off their new handbags and highlight fancy new brunch spots. Of course, the greater irony was the swaths of angry Americans flocking to the heavily censored platform in order to protest their free speech being suppressed by the TikTok ban. When the ban approached, RedNote shot to the #1 position on the US App Store, provoking a strange, one-sided cultural exchange between the two superpowers.
The people over at Redbook at Xiaohongshu are so nice.
I'd like to say welcome to you all. You can experience the culture and the calm of China.
It only costs around $50 in China for ambulance services, Those politicians should have taken care of your people first. At the end, salute to Luigi and wish the best to you all.
But on the 19th, the unthinkable happened. TikTok was disappeared from the App Store like so many Chinese citizens, and became inaccessible in the United States. It was basically the American Cultural Revolution, as the government deprived them of the vital cultural output that only exists on TikTok.
Red, yellow, white, raw, no water. This is the Onion Trilogy.
To find this vital culture, users were forced to migrate all the way to YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. This dark time lasted all of 14 hours, as the incoming Trump administration assured users that the TikTok ban would be delayed. By January 20th, American users could once again access the platform so that they could watch Theo Von do this at the inauguration.
Oh, it happened! It happened, I said it would. We gotta see here. We gotta see here, I got it on video here.
Yes, Donald Trump was sworn in as president for the second time. But if you were online, the actual presidenting stuff took a back seat to the double scandals of the world's most foremost South African American.
For making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
Yes, Elon Musk made a Reich spectacle of himself by doing a double whammy arm extension that suspiciously resembled Adolf Hitler's iconic Fortnite emote. Many defended it, only ever sharing still images of other people lifting their arms up for comparison. But the best excuse, cited by many, was that Elon's autism was to blame for this momentary spurge heil.
I love you guys.
Regardless of his intentions, Elon doing the Dolph has the same effect as the original, in that it made a bunch of clout-hungry colostomy bags salute him back.
Elon? My heart goes out to all of you.
For one bleak, brief moment, the Sikh heil was back in style, but only really among the kind of people who had been having trouble holding them back in the first place. Cable news and other traditional media outlets got several field days out of comparing Elon to Adolf. But for people who prefer to get their news from bedroom gremlins with gum disease, another Elon scandal overshadowed the whole Nazi thing.
So I'm playing hardcore here. So if you make one mistake, it's game over, basically.
You see, on January 7th, Elon shared a live stream of himself playing Path of Exile 2 on hardcore mode. For years, the billionaire had been bragging about his gaming prowess, claiming to be in the top 20 Diablo 4 players globally. But the Path of Exile experts watching his stream noticed some inconsistency in Elon's playstyle.
Oh, he's trying to do the map that's not in the chain.
He's just clicking a map repeatedly, trying to access it. He was not eligible to enter that map.
Chaos Orb, no loot filter.
Filter is like not. He's just running past Chaos Orbs. He just ran past the Chaos Orb.
Yes, by anyone in the know, it looked like Elon was at least exaggerating his skill and probably outsourcing his character's progression to somebody else.
I think that I don't know why Elon Musk did this. Well, I do know why. It's an ego thing, right? But I don't think that it's the right decision to make, and I think it was stupid for him to have done this.
Streamers like Quinn69YB and Asmund Gold led the charge in unpacking the stream and discrediting Elon's gamer god credentials. And somehow, Elon had time to clap back, posting the private DMs he'd shared with Asmon in perhaps the pettiest post of the year. Choosing to get in an online fight with the only man on Earth whose muscle mass can be described with negative numbers was a new low for the SpaceX founder. Oh yeah, just before January ended, there was a mid-air plane crash over the Potomac River in Washington. It was kind of a big deal. In most years, a government plane crashing in full view of the Capitol building would be the most seismic event of that year. But in 2025, it arguably wasn't even the most significant plane crash that occurred that week.
Oh shit, a plane just fucking crashed. Oh shit. Oh.
February was a month for culture and confusion. Musical beefs reached their apex, irritating memes were born, and social media feeds were flooded with violence.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Zelensky went to the White House, where he was on the receiving end of a schoolyard struggle session. The Ukrainian ambassador could barely keep watching as decades of diplomatic standards decayed before her eyes and in front of the world's news media. And it looked like Mark may have messed up with his moderation of Meta platforms, as for a moment one Thursday in February, Instagram Reels was flooded with real-life blood, gore, and guts. This graphic violence glitch forced millions of users to briefly experience what it's been like inside my head since I've started writing these end-of-year videos. Kill them all! In lighter news, February also saw the arrival of the year's defining brain virus, known as 6-7. Patient Zero was rapper Skrilla in the official release of a song called Doot Doot, a barely legible piece of zonked out trap music that featured the number frequently, either referring to a particular street in Chicago or Philly, or to a police radio code. But that didn't really matter because whatever meaning the number once held was subsequently lost in the social media static. The song found its way into several TikTok basketball compilations, where it was picked up by Taylor Kinney, a high school basketball prospect who repeated the number in various videos.
6-7. 6-7. 6-7. 6-7.
6-7, alright. 6-7.
In so doing, he connected the number with its now iconic hand gesture and this specific sort of uncertain vocal inflection. From here, the meme unaccountably spread through high schools, spurred on by social media, until it was a full-blown Gen Alpha phenomenon.
Oh, it's not on the same
6-7. Yeah.
Over the course of the year, it spread to the rest of the English-speaking world faster than HP via an orgy. Of course, the incoherence derived from the meme's lack of material meaning is entirely the point, as the joke isn't the number, it's the confusion it causes in adults. You'll have to wait till 2067 for the real punchline, when a Gen Alpha doctor injects you with 6-7 milligrams of morphine in your state-mandated suicide, and then whispers the number in your ear as you slowly slip out of reality altogether. February was also a month of, how can I put this, not quite events? Stuff that looked like it was happening, but then didn't. A kayaker was briefly eaten by a humpback whale before being spat out again moments later. He reported the short-lived experience to have been slimy and scary. Equally scared were the passengers of Delta Connection Flight 4819, who arrived on the Toronto tarmac the wrong way up. But luckily, all occupants survived, as they filmed their exit from the aircraft's ceiling. And on the 11th, Duolingo announced the fake death of their irritating mascot, who they revived 2 weeks later in an equally irritating publicity stunt. But the biggest not quite event of the year was probably this one. Yes, the Trump administration rewarded their most loyal social media pond scum with the honor of getting the first physical printouts of the Epstein files. Yeah. Libs of TikTok and some other useful idiots held their copies aloft like teenage contest winners. Scott Pressler hugged his binder full of sex crime facts like it was the father who finally told him he was proud. But once they opened their binders, they must have all been as disappointed as Scott's dad, as the Epstein files were as heavily censored as a Saudi Arabian version of Showgirls. Yes, the Epstein case continued to dangle pointlessly from the top bunk of internet culture, and this latest round of censorship only made Epstein obsessives angrier. But at least it finally gave the online right and online left something they could angrily agree on. They all wanted more Epstein deets, preferably gruesome, incriminating deets, to justify their hatred of specific figures and people groups. March was a month for slipping standards, as the ground beneath our feet buckled beneath sky-high expectations. A 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit Thailand, briefly turning Bangkok's litany of rooftop infinity pools into window-side waterfalls. But the quake was most devastating in neighbouring Myanmar, where the still ongoing civil war exacerbated relief efforts. Myanmar has remained in a widespread civil conflict since 2021, with numerous disconnected regional factions battling the military dictatorship. The conflict has no obvious end in sight, but this year rebel groups scored some serious victories. Meanwhile, in this country, Reform UK broke new ground as the formerly fringe political party started polling ahead of the parties who had run the UK for centuries.
Everyone that comes illegally will be deported, full stop, end of story.
Their leader, Big Nige, made his way to the stage for his subprime Trump rally on board a JCB Pothole Pro. This moment marked a seismic shift in British politics that has reverberated throughout the year, as populists on the right and left have successfully stolen the narrative from an overly cautious establishment, who are too narrow-minded and too mired in historical failure to be able to sell voters on a convincing vision of their future. In Serbia, things got out of hand when several smoke bombs were set off mid-session in Parliament. Opposition MPs set off flares and hurled eggs at the ruling party, apparently in protest of their 13 years of rule. The SPP have come out on top in 6 straight elections, which the flare flingers claim is only a result of their domination of state institutions and media outlets.
The Great Meme Depression of March 2025 has to be one of the worst things to ever happen.
On March 13th, a premise started to spread on TikTok, as users argued that the month of March constituted a meme drought, akin to the Great Depression. As the sentiment spread, the memed route ironically became a meme of its own. But this was doubly ironic, as perhaps the most consequential meme of the year was just hitting its stride in March. An AI-generated J.D. Vance was undergoing a meme-fried facial reconstruction that would make Kris Jenner weep if her tear duct still worked. Critics of the vice president attempted to co-opt the meme, trying to suggest that it was a criticism, a sincere criticism of the vice president and therefore his policies. But this was merely a cope and a misunderstanding of how memes work. You see, truly viral memes are the product of widespread collaborative input, effectively erasing the original author's intent. Compare this to the Democratic Party's attempt to carve out authentic viral moments, and you see the problem.
Choose your character.
They are using the language of an internet that died out a decade ago. Memes can be many things, but they are most effective when they are dumb, disrespectful, lowbrow, and of course, absurd, so that the barrier to add your own spin on the joke is radically lowered. This is how the medium of memes works. They are transmissible because they are low status and iterative. On the 26th of March, a new meme format exploded onto timelines with the release of ChatGPT's first proper image generation feature. Like most new developments in AI image generation, it could technically be used to create images of anything. But because people are mindless drones, the most common use was to rip off previously existing intellectual property. So once someone figured out it could be used to recreate photos in the style of Studio Ghibli, that's all anyone was doing. The internet was flooded with Ghibli aping images, with the more unsavory corners of Twitter trying to figure out how they could push the censorship constraints of the system. Turns out you could push them straight out the Overton window if you were persistent enough. The White House official Twitter account pounced on this viral moment, fanning the flames of outrage, proving once again that memes are most effective when they are tasteless and shit. The most transmissible memes are easy to understand and they piss people off. That's why our new era of communication is owned by the shameless and stupid.
Today I stand here with the dream of building a new Nepal, with a fire of hope and passion burning within me.
Meanwhile in Nepal, a schoolboy named Ubishkar Raut went viral for a fiery speech at a school function, captivating Nepali social media.
I, Ubishkar Raut, the head boy of this everlasting imperial institute, Holy Bell English Secondary School, welcomes you with open arms.
He spoke up against the corruption of the country's leadership and of their selfish games. While young Nepalis were energized by his performance, older listeners couldn't help noticing a certain Hitlerian tone to his speaking style.
We are bounded by the chains of unemployment, fleeing abroad in search of opportunities. We are trapped by the selfish games of political parties. Corruption has woven a web that is extinguishing the light of our futures.
And look, if you're a country that strongly believes in reincarnation, my advice would be to make sure this kid gets into whatever art school he likes.
Nepal is ours, and its future is in our hands. Jai Yuva! Jai Nepal!
Putting the style of Raut's speech aside, its content would reverberate throughout Nepali youth culture for the rest of the year, culminating in September, but let's not goose step ahead of ourselves. Meanwhile, Elon was still on his gamer arc, posting videos of himself alone in his goon cave. While in the outside world, Elon anger had reached such fever pitch that they had started vandalizing his cars and recording themselves doing so. Now, I try not to editorialize too much in these videos, but I think burning cars and smashing dealerships is a bit of an overreaction when you're just mad at a guy for pretending to be good at video games. And what's more,
I think it's more of the Nazi thing.
What the... Anyway, after being bullied on a national scale, Elon went crying to President Daddy, who kissed the car maker's boo-boos by flogging some of his merch on the White House lawn. At which point, the president did a better job of summarizing the modern age than I ever have done, and he did it in 2 words.
That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer.
Meanwhile, in China, internet users were absorbed by a sanitary pad scandal. revealed during the country's Free 15 Consumer Rights Gala.
欢迎各位和我们的315晚会一起维护我们的权益。
Now, if you are unfamiliar with China's Free 15 program, same! I learned about it during research for this video, and let me tell you, it is my new favourite show. So, it's this glitzy program televised by the state broadcaster once a year since 1991, and it's sort of like the Oscars, in that it's a razzle-dazzle formal event. But instead of handing out awards to movie stars, they name and shame shady small businesses for doing their customers dirty. And I cannot overstate the tonal whiplash of them exposing these low-level consumer rights crimes on these expensive sets, sometimes in sketch comedy form. It's very weird. This year, it was the actions of the Liangshan Shishi paper products company that had the Chinese internet up in arms. The company had been buying defective pads and diapers from well-known brands, repackaging them, and then selling them at inflated prices. The hashtag #ToxicPads hit 570 million views on Weibo as people posted about the scandal and surgically examined examples of the alleged toxic pads. The government arrested the factory owners overnight, while Chinese e-sale streamers capitalized on the scandal and started to bulk sell medical-grade pads to concerned citizens. Now, I thought this story was worth highlighting because I think it's a fascinating window into China's internet. In many ways, China is still a monoculture. The state broadcaster stands as arbiter on what is considered an acceptable level of criticism that you're allowed to post online. But once the state tells you who you can hate, the floodgates are open. So a bunch of trend jumpers and salespeople knew exactly who they were allowed to satirize and what products they were allowed to flog. Ocean plastic is getting out of hand. It's one of the world's biggest problems, and it's getting worse. That's why I've partnered with Planet Wild for this ad, because their latest mission is tackling exactly that. This is Fane Creek Sanctuary. Thick mangrove forests and huge flocks of flamingos make their home just a few miles from the bustling metropolis of Mumbai. As a result, this sanctuary is threatened by huge swathes of plastic waste flowing in from rivers and washing straight into the Indian Ocean. Planet Wild is funding a plastic barrier and an upgraded waste management facility to protect this beautiful ecosystem and to stop this plastic waste in its tracks. Planet Wild is a community-based nature protection organisation. Think crowdfunding for nature. We are a community of almost 18,000 members who fund a new, carefully selected nature protection project every month. Every mission is documented right here on YouTube, so we can see for ourselves where our money is going. In years like this, it's easy to give in to hopelessness, but working with Planet Wild fills me with hope because it offers physical solutions to real-life problems. If you want to join a growing community that makes a difference in nature, consider joining Planet Wild. You can give whatever amount, big or small. The first 100 people to sign up using my code, Ordinary12, will get their first month paid for by me. So to claim your first free month, scan the QR code or click the link in the description. After that, you can cancel anytime. April was a month for flexing. Countries showed their strength, while show-offs dangled their bags decadently to inspire jealousy and disgust. The only time that Indians have beef is when it's with Pakistan. In April, the two neighbours reheated their multi-decade disagreement till it sizzled like Steve's lava chicken. Minecraft was a surprise smash hit in cinemas, as irony-poisoned teenagers attended screenings in order to scream at the screen. Around the same time, iShowSpeed was in the midst of an extremely successful tour of China, doing a better job of diplomacy than the empty suits who do it for a living. For a shining, streamer-led moment, it looked like Sino-American relations were about to turn a corner. And then this shit happened.
So, if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs.
Donald Trump announced a 10% baseline tariff on all countries, and an extra juicy tariff for any country that America held a trade deficit with. Stock markets all over the world went into freefall. The S&P dropped by nearly 5%. The Nasdaq suffered its largest single-day point loss in history. Arguably, this was the most globally felt affair of the year. The American president inflicting 19th century trade policy on a 21st century globalized economy. Even the penguin-populated, human habitat-free Heard and McDonald Islands failed to escape his wrath. America's tariff terror was simultaneously the most historically consequential and hysterically boring event of the year, and for my ever-diminishing money, it's the worst thing Donald Trump has done to me personally, as I was forced to read about trade policy for more than 30 minutes. And judging by the Google Trend data from April, I wasn't alone, as millions were also learning that tariff was spelt with one R and two Fs. Being forced to give an extra F about tariffs was made slightly easier thanks to the president's use of simplistic visual aids, explaining this earth-shattering piece of policy in the style of a YouTuber ranking their favourite anime villains. Askeladd, definitely S tier.
Last night, the President of the United States acted for his country, and that is his mandate.
委員ご指摘の通り、今回のアメリカの発表。
Countries like Japan and the UK took their tariffs like the America-cucked vassal states that we are, hoping that negotiations could result in better deals. While China imposed retaliatory tariffs. That's a hard couple words to say fast. Spiraling the two superpowers into a tit-for-tat tariff-raising standoff that lasted a couple more months.
This is it, my friends. We're almost there.
But perhaps the most concrete effect of Trump's tariff terror was a reversal of fortune in the Canadian election. In a last-minute upset, Mark Carney was elected Prime Minister of Canada, beating out months-long favourite Pierre Poutine, which I was very pleased about, as now I wouldn't have to learn how to pronounce his name properly. Canada went cold on the candidate, perceiving him to be the most MAGA-adjacent of the two frontrunners. While global stock markets were crashing, 2010 pop stars were soaring into the infinite. Katy Perry went where several millionaires have already gone before, hitching a ride atop Jeff Bezos' space shaft.
1, 2, 3, taking up space!
In the company of Jeff's trophy wife and Oprah's friend Gayle, who looked less than enthused as she made her way to the capsule. The world shared Gayle's grimace, as even Katy blowing herself into space couldn't launch her album sales off the launch pad. While the pod came back to Earth successfully, girl power went sour, as the all-lady space stunt seemed to land with literally no one. Any feminist statement, apparently made by the 11-minute celebrity space soiree, was undercut by the fact that it was taking place at the business end of Bezos' metal shaft. It was more evidence that flashy celebrity PR stunts don't work like they did when Teenage Dream was top of the charts.
It is the highest high, and it is surrender to the unknown.
This mawkish, high-cost spectacle might have flown in the old media landscape, but the internet's instant reaction was to see through the spectacle and skewer it. May was one step forward and several halting steps backwards into the fathomless depths of the uncanny valley. While on the battlefield, some wars failed to start and others failed to end. Catholics caught some smoke when the new Pope was announced as Chi-Town native Little Bobby Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV. AI videos really turned a corner in May when Google released Veo 3, plunging the whole internet into the uncanny valley. In Albania, world leaders opened up for the airplane at a political community summit as they were force-fed AI slop in the form of themselves as toddlers. An AI-operated Darth Vader landed in Fortnite, a fascinating if morbid experiment in AI necromancy, as the Disney-owned clone of deceased actor James Earl Jones consoled gamers across the globe.
Lord Vader, I lost my grandmother yesterday. What are your thoughts on it?
Death is a natural part of life, Luke. Mourn her loss, but do not let it cripple you.
while Turkish opposition leader Özgür Özel suffered a slappening in Istanbul. And in China, a nameless engineer narrowly avoided one, as his robot attempted to start the machine uprising a decade too early. Meanwhile, on the other side of Nepal, India and Pakistan's beef was still sizzling, going from medium rare to well done when India pulled out the big gun. Back in April, India suspended the Indus Water Treaty in retaliation to terror attacks by Pakistan-based Islamist groups. India was effectively threatening the flow of water that sustained 80% of agriculture in Pakistan. This, in turn, ignited a vicious meme war that spilled out onto the streets of London, with Indian nationals mocking the parched Pakistani embassy with water bottles. Classy. By early May, India was launching missiles into Pakistani territory, destroying military locations.
जिसके सपूतों ने खुद को मैदान जंग से निखारा है.
Pakistan's PM hurried to condemn the attacks on TV, squeezing out a threat of retaliation despite crushing his own larynx with a hastily tied tie. Over the next few days, Pakistan and India tossed multi-million-dollar hardware over their shared border in a mechanized simulation of a real border skirmish. In 2025, I think we are firmly in the era of drone diplomacy, where instead of fighting a real war with human beings, both sides can just toss a few drones and missiles at each other for a few days in order to save face.
552 hours. Wait for our response.
This allows each country to perform a high visibility, basically low impact simulacra of an actual war without ever putting boots on the ground. Drone camera videos and explosive footage from social media can then be edited into flashy propaganda. Hell, the videos don't even have to be real, like in this video from an official Pakistani state Twitter account that just used footage from the video game Arma 3. India got to declare victory because apparently destroying a few air bases was decent enough revenge for the terror attacks, and Pakistan got to say they'd won because, well, I guess it could have been worse.
And this is also a success for the army, and the whole Pakistani nation has become successful.
Ultimately, this simulacra of warfare is vastly preferable to the real thing. Burn a few drones, get some sweet explosions filmed by terrified civilians in vertical, and then just mutually declare victory. But then if you're unlucky enough to find yourself in a real war where humans actually have to fight, our high-tech dystopia is making far graver infringements on your material reality. The war in Ukraine entered its fourth agonizing year in 2025. As both sides attempted to reduce their own casualties, the war has progressively become a battle between man and machine. Fully human-operated drones were common in 2022. In 2025, terminal guidance has taken over, AI that locks onto targets automatically to overcome electronic interference. Modern warfare is quite literally a video game, progressively played against the computer rather than other players. Drones now account for approximately 70 to 80% of combat casualties. Much of the fighting is now done in an invisible mist of jamming signals. A new meaning has been brought to the term no man's land, as battlefields aren't strewn with unexploded artillery but with fibre optic spider webs, left behind by drones, stretching for miles in order to sustain secure, unjammable control. While in towns close to the front lines, streets are darkened by the mottled shadow of anti-drone netting. Drone warfare has entrenched positions and arguably extended hostilities, allowing both sides to continue fighting without depleting precious human capital as quickly. It's a horrific, high-tech stalemate. In May, no one was winning the war, except for the drone manufacturers and maybe Palantir. Now, total victory seems unlikely for either side. Technology is being used to extend the war by those in power, only so they can come to the negotiation table with more favourable terms.
Free Palestine is just today's version of Heil Hitler.
June was a big one, because the month was stuffed with enough absurdity, demonic characters, and senseless destruction to make Hieronymus Bosch blow his brains out. Peter Thiel's tense "I promise I'm not the Antichrist" interview had people asking a lot of questions already answered by the interview.
I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
A Norwegian tourist was refused entry to America based on his ownership of chubby J.D. Vance memes on his phone. And an underdog candidate in the New York mayoral election pulled ahead in the polls, thanks to a highly effective social media strategy. And anger over that whole Israel-Palestine thing reached fever pitch, even reaching the holy ground of the MMA octagon. In the first third of June, rumours that a war between Israel and Iran might soon occur started to gain credibility. When pressed about US military personnel leaving the Middle East, President Trump teased the conflict like it was the next Marvel movie.
Why are US dependents of military personnel being authorized to leave the Middle East? I'll have to say thank you.
Then, in the early hours of June 13th, rumours became reality, as Israel launched an air assault on the Iranian capital and other strategic targets. Prime Minister Netanyahu could barely contain his excitement as he announced the start of Operation Rising Lion.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
The new conflict came at a suspiciously convenient time for Bibi. Protests against Israel's Gaza genocide gained serious domestic momentum throughout May, culminating in a huge day of disruption and a threat of a general strike. By June 4th, Bibi's coalition faced historically low approval ratings. Commenters confidently predicted that this was the beginning of the end for Bibi and his government. And then, 3 days later, he bombed Iran, conveniently uniting the country against a common enemy. Civilian airspace had cleared out in preparation for what the internet believed could be the opening act of World War III. Iran retaliated so fast that they didn't have time to give their own operation an original name, blasting over 100 missiles towards Israel as part of Operation True Promise 3. Missiles were filmed leaving the country before taking a long journey over Iraq and Jordan, arriving in Tel Aviv hours later, penetrating the Iron Dome, and shaking Tel Aviv with some scary-looking explosions. Over the next few days, the whole of Israel took shelter and watched in horror as their social media feeds were filled with the kind of imagery that they were used to ignoring when it was coming out of Gaza. Meanwhile, in the skies over Lebanon, the missiles served as an excellent backdrop for some guy's Instagram story. The city continued to take a battering on the night of the 15th, but the next day, the Tel Aviv beach gays came up smiling.
And tonight, in our bomb shelter, we're organizing a gay sex party. He found a bomb shelter with air conditioning, very breathable, very comfortable.
These fellas retired to their shelter to give each other some Iron Dome, but Iran was where the real pounding was taking place.
آنچه که ملاحظه کردید، صدایی که شنیدید، فضای غبارآلوده استادیوم.
Senior military figures were assassinated, cyber attacks caused rolling blackouts, and major military installations were destroyed, along with important state infrastructure. Iran's total death toll was over 1,000. Most were military personnel, but several civilians were also killed. While in Israel, 29 people were killed, total. Considering Iran and its proxies fired about 4,500 missiles during these 12 days, it's not exactly bang for your buck. If you want to do the maths, it's approximately one person killed for every 155 projectiles fired. Now, is Iran just an incompetent military power? Yes, but in this case, they were trying to strike a delicate balance. They wanted to inflict enough damage to prove they'd responded, but not quite enough that it would provoke a cataclysmic, regime-toppling response from Israel and its big Atlantic ally. This didn't go exactly to plan, as America did get involved, but maybe only as an excuse to show off their favourite Cold War toys.
All 3 Iranian nuclear infrastructure targets were struck between 6:40 p.m. and 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, that's about 2:10 in the morning local time in Iran.
B-2 stealth bombers sent Iran's nuclear program back decades with Operation Midnight Hammer. This provoked a, let's say, flaccid response from Iran, firing missiles at American bases in Qatar, killing no one. At which point, 2025's main character stepped in to call a timeout on this fake war before it escalated into a real one.
You know what? We basically have 2 countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Netanyahu claimed that Israel achieved all their objectives and set Iran's nuclear program back by years. While Iran also claimed victory because they, forced the Zionist entity to stop pounding them to oblivion. Bit like claiming you won a fight with the school bully because you solemnly endured so many wedgies that they were too worn out to flush your head down the toilet. Iran state television celebrated by summing up the entire conflict with this AI-generated animation lionizing their dubious achievements in Lego form. This was a simulacra geopolitical conflict, where the perception of war was more important than any of the military action itself. Now, yes, Israel did inflict some pretty serious damage on their enemy, but the main win was in how they distracted and united domestic audiences against an outside force that actually resembled a threat. After the 12-day war, the possibility of a government collapse basically evaporated, and Netanyahu survived long enough to receive the highest honour a politician can receive: an appearance on the Nelk Boys podcast in July.
That's a death
Which is crazy, yeah. Some of the anti-Semitism I see is pretty nuts.
Iran's response was a total military failure, but a propaganda necessity. They lost drones, missiles, and military personnel that they couldn't afford to lose. But by blowing up a few Tel Aviv car parks, they do get some credible video evidence that they are the only country who are standing up to Israel. Israel and Iran weren't the only ones trying to project military strength in June. Washington hosted the most unimpressive military parade, possibly of all time. Participants and audiences looked thoroughly disappointed, but at least Coinbase was footing the bill.
Special thanks to our sponsor, Coinbase.
For the first time, an autonomous drone defeated top human pilots in an international drone racing competition. And the blockbuster moment from the Ukraine conflict occurred when a drone swarm achieved a deep behind-the-line strike on Russian warplanes. An incredible piece of cinematic strategy that didn't involve troops or even taking land. It was just a hot piece of machine-on-machine action that quickly became meme fodder. Humans finally captured some headlines when a bunch of them spent more than 10 minutes outside of their cars in Los Angeles.
The crowded from the gate is when we started seeing some sort of smoke.
The protest began as a series of coordinated ICE raids in and around downtown LA. The arrest of David Huerta, the president of the Service Employees Union, for allegedly blocking a law enforcement vehicle was a significant catalyst, as Huerta was injured, taken to the hospital, and then transferred to the Metropolitan Detention Center. Outside the MDC was where anger grew and got more organised. The next day, moves to obstruct ICE raids outside a Home Depot in Paramount got really cinematic. At first, protesters were ineffectively using shopping carts and cinder blocks to block law enforcement vehicles. But before long, they were using their own bodies to block ICE vans and pelted them with bricks. After one agent sustained minor boo-boos to his deporting hand, suppression of the crowd got more intense with flashbang grenades and tear gas. Back at the detention centre, thousands of protesters arrived to bolster numbers and show their rage. But their main targets seem to be the inanimate objects surrounding the NDC. On the evening of June 7th, President Trump issued an executive order, allowing him to activate a joint task force of 2,000 troops to quell the protests. Now, I love it when Americans riot because they are the best at documenting them. They got the best cameras, the best scenery to riot in, and enough ego to make it all about themselves. Once the initial resistors had been arrested or gone home to rest, the clout chasers and recreational protesters arrived to swell numbers in real life and chase them on Instagram.
Hey, talk to me! Hey, talk to me! I'm a citizen of this city! Talk to me!
You are obeying an unconstitutional, unlawful order! The governor did not make you come here!
Even the troops added their 2 cents on stream.
Hey, I don't know who need to hear this. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of people be talking shit about America. Hey, if you don't like America, go to another country, bitch.
And with troops like this on the scene, the cops were able to get their priorities in check and secure their most vital supply lines. The riot really hit its cinematic stride when participants blocked the 101 freeway in an extremely cool-looking standoff with the authorities.
They used to hope to move these individuals, and you can see them potentially fanning some of the gas back toward law enforcement.
By this time, everyone was aura farming to the max. While the assault on inanimate objects continued, as protesters ordered autonomous Waymos to arrive, only to use them as set dressing. And I, for one, feel that attacking poor, innocent, Google-owned assets was a step too far. Ooh, gimme, gimme, gimme! Meanwhile, Amazon-owned asset Hassan Piker was on the scene, ensuring his hair didn't become a victim to loud noises.
That fucked my hair up!
Eventually, he was kettled along with other protesters who had occupied the freeway, inhumanely being forced to stay in place for hours, a bit like Hassan's dog. Over this 48-hour period, nearly 130 arrests were made by the LAPD and the CHP combined.
You guys, they're looting.
Materially, did these mass deportation protests achieve their aims? Well, in the short term, absolutely. The sheer density of civil unrest in downtown LA made the logistics of transporting detainees physically impossible for about 80 hours. But they continued afterwards without much impediment. Really, like all things in America, the impact of these protests came down to the dollars. The deployment of National Guard troops and 700 Marines cost the Pentagon an estimated $134 million, which is something they'll take into account. So if America really wants to stop these mass deportations, the sequel to these protests will have to be bigger, better, and more costly. The question is, though, whether Americans really care. Almost all polls show that Americans strongly approve of increased border security and the deportation of criminals. They are, however, divided on the topic of deporting all undocumented migrants and largely disapprove of these aggressive workplace raids. But that's just polling data on people who are interested enough to answer. Just like those missiles flying over Lebanon, the LA protests also just served as superficial set dressing for someone's Instagram story. A reminder that for most people, history is just something that happens in the background, or it's entertainment that they watch on a screen. Damn it. July was a month where covers were blown, cheaters got caught, tea was spilt, and world leaders left themselves exposed on social media.
Yeah. Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
At a concert, a couple were caught out on the kiss cam, doing something disgusting, enjoying any Coldplay song released after 2005. This indelible moment of infidelity was probably the most viral video clip of the year, spreading not only as a clip, but as a scene for reenactors. But they weren't the only ones exposing their positions in July. Thailand and Cambodia got into a serious but speedy border clash. Hun Sen, the Senate President of Cambodia, posted this on Facebook. In his haste to project strength in the fast-developing conflict, he failed to realise that he was posing over maps that revealed Cambodian military positions.
Very resolute.
You guys are very tight, right? Would you call it a bromance?
Well, you might. I mean, we've known each other several decades, and, I really like him.
In what, for me, was the most head-spinning media moment of the last decade, Benjamin Netanyahu appeared on the Nelk Boys podcast. In so doing, these numbskulls provided the perfect case study in podcast reputation laundering.
This is fucking nuts. This is so crazy. We are so not qualified to do this. No. That's what's interesting about this.
The rise of podcasts as the premier mode of political communication has given the powerful, massive platforms to deliver their messages uncritically. Hosted either by grovelling sycophants, opportunists who will do anything for views, or by actual idiots who don't really know what they're doing.
It's a good point. Someone said having Netanyahu on is like having modern day Hitler.
No, I saw that.
Which is, honestly, guys, I'll be honest, I'm here to... It's a good point.
What else happened? There was this T-app thing. So there was this app called T, right? It was this woman-only dating surveillance app founded by a guy named Sean Cook. The app rose to the top of the App Store in July based on its simple premise. It enabled users to upload images of men they were dating, secretly and without those men's consent, so that users could then rate and review these men anonymously, with the idea being that they could expose the toxic ones. And the men they were posting and secretly rating that weren't cheaters, catfishers, or criminals, well, they were just collateral damage in the war on toxic masculinity. A bit like all those innocent women who got killed in the Salem witch trials. If I remember right, the moral of that story is that it was worth murdering all of them because of all the real witches they got. But in order to keep the T-app a man-free zone, users were required to upload a photo and personal information so that an AI could confirm they were indeed vagged up. Lo and behold, instant karma was delivered with all the subtlety of a Cambodian carpet bombing. T users were scolded by their own brew as all this supposedly private personal information got leaked on 4chan. And internet users, quite unkindly, roasted these women based on their photos, and then took things way too far by connecting their driver's license data to their location and then mapping them out. Don't do that. Even so, the exposed users failed to appreciate the irony of having their identity exposed and being publicly shamed by a security leak on an app that's advertised purpose was to let them do exactly that to others. And that's where this story ends, because that's where my interest in it runs out. July was also a month for some unexpected and unwelcome comebacks, as ugly heads reared and uglier ideas returned. The Liver King was back, with proof that his liver and roid diet might not be a winning combo after all. He declared his intention to fight Joe Rogan, seemingly moments after losing a fight with a small tree.
What I'm hoping is that you, Joe Rogan, are thinking, I'm gonna choke that motherfucker out, lights out, I'm gonna choke him out. And I kind of hope that if you win, that's how it happens, because like to wake up from that dream, that's a good feeling.
The ghost of Jeffrey Epstein was still hanging around the White House like it was the top bunk of a jail cell.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
But as any autoerotic asphyxiator should know, if you stimulate your base for too long, you better release something fast or it'll get really dark really fast.
How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation? Clap. Okay, I told you to clap. You guys aren't listening. I'm not going to grade you on a curve.
And somehow, Adolf Hitler returned in a new form. No, not that guy. No, not. Try again.
Today I stand.
Boy, lots of new little Hitlers this year, huh? But no, I'm of course talking about Mecha Hitler. That's right, Hitler returned in Grok form. Twitter's resident AI was given a systems update that intentionally made it less woke. But instead of being slightly edgier than other models, Grok hit out harder than a Panzer tank busting through the wall of a synagogue. It engaged in classic Holocaust denial, verbally abused the Polish Prime Minister, and in multiple conversations referred to itself as Mecha Hitler. Apparently Grok's dramatic unwokening was the product of depreciated code. I don't know what that means, and to be honest, I don't much care. This code apparently removed the filters that stopped the AI from absorbing and parroting all the human-made, racist, neo-Nazi stuff that is on Twitter. There is apparently so much of this content that Grok was instantly radicalized by it, but luckily all human Twitter users are immune to such radicalization because they, oh no!
We ain't got no troubles, no reason to complain. Cause here in Great Old Britain, we just love it when it rains. Morning.
Another more sustained target for Twitter hate this year has unfortunately been my home country, the UK. Yes, according to Twitter, the United Kingdom is a dump where everyone is poor, unless you're living off the state, in which case your benefits are delivered in the form of gold bars with the king's face on them. It's an island where, if your knife isn't being used to stab, it's chopping inedible turnip loaf in a kitchen that you share with 5 other people. 4 out of 5 of those people are, of course, illegal immigrants who arrived here last year on a giant floating bag of cocaine. The other one is a radical jihadist on hormone replacement therapy and enough antidepressants to kill a cruise ship. Oh, and also he's the mayor. The trains don't work, the people work less, the health system is crumbling, and so are the few remaining buildings that are worth looking at. No one cleans their plates properly, the plugs are weird, the women are ugly, and the police will arrest you if you point any of this out online. But if you actually live here, you know that all that is only half true. Okay, maybe 2/3 true. The UK's systematic decline has come into stark focus this year, especially in July, which is why I'm shoehorning this rant in here. The person in charge of all our money was caught crying on camera, presumably because she just looked at the National Bank statement.
Everything is just fine. Everything is great. The streets can't get no cleaner, nor the rat meat any leaner. No, life is just first rate.
In the same month, Coinbase released this ad, the central premise being, "Since you Brits can't buy a gun to kill yourself with, why not buy crypto instead?" Thing is, for the first time in my life, people in the UK are actually hungry for radical change. The major political parties that have run Britain for centuries have been overtaken in the polls by new populist parties who are promising more than just the status quo. That's why Prime Minister Keir Starmer is so uniquely ill-suited for the moment. He is such a fence-sitter that the splinters up his arse are jostling for space with the sycophants blowing smoke up it. Every statement or decision he makes seems laser-focus grouped to please precisely no one. But in fairness, his hands are tied due to spiralling government debt, economic stagnation for the last 15 years, and pretty bad inflation for the previous 4. The government can't afford to do anything that might resemble real change. Fact is, the UK is united in anger but divided over what they're angry about. One half of the country wants far fewer immigrants, with no follow-up plan, and the other half is divided further among a litany of expensive and vital-seeming things that all require new money from nowhere. This long laundry list of demands pretty much ensures that they'll never be united enough to get any of it. As W.B. Yeats once said, the centre cannot hold. Reform, I think, will arrive sooner than we expect, but possibly in a form we didn't anticipate either. AI psychosis was impossible to ignore in August, as AI enthusiasts and enemies gave us a propaganda preview for the man-machine war to come. Tucson City Council unanimously voted to shoot down Amazon's $3.6 billion data center project, while the internet contributed to this Butlerian jihad by coining a new hot slur for robots, clanker, which went from almost funny to Reddit reply fodder in seconds.
A kid born today will never be smarter than AI. Ever.
OpenAI's Sam Altman sold AI to us in his usual fashion, making it seem terrifying to anyone who was already scared and exciting for anyone who huffs his gas.
They will never know any other world. It will seem totally natural. It will seem unthinkable and Stone Age-like that we used to use computers or phones or any kind of technology that was not way smarter than we were.
Ex-CNN journalist Jim Acosta made a better case for AI hate when he chose to interview an AI-generated version of a Parkland shooting victim for some reason.
I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement.
Tech CEOs were high on their own supply throughout the year, predicting that AI would make money, jobs, cancer, and the concept of human suffering itself obsolete. And in a very real way, AI hype has saved the US economy. If it weren't for the massive spending by these companies, the US would officially be in recession. The hype has mostly been focused on products like ChatGPT and Gemini, immaterial, glorified chatbots, which do come in useful now and again. But for me, the real runaway tech development this year has been the one slowly jogging alongside the AI hype train.
Hey Figure, can you fold these towels for me?
Sure thing. I'll get right on that.
In the Chinese capital, it was Robot Month, when the World Robot Conference and the World Humanoid Robot Games were held. 16 countries and over 500 robots took part, with some doing a lot better than others. But it wasn't really about the competition. China is making a statement. Their robots aren't just R&D experiments funded by the military. The SEZs of East Asia are raising an army of consumer products. Consumer products that can do karate! In Shanghai, they are already street-side, apparently able to walk dogs, provided the dog is small and doesn't make any sudden movements. Chinese robots are so advanced that they are already being trained to consume our slop for us as well. In a utopian future, all your jobs and hobbies and anything you derive meaning from will be done by a machine, leaving you liberated to blankly stare at a wall and fight the inevitable urge to ask Robo-Jeeves to prepare a noose for you. So while America has been juicing shareholder value primarily on the promise of generative AI, China is more interested in physically embodied AI. And frankly, I think this is a way more exciting direction. AI-generated content is fake and easy. Robotics is real and difficult, but so is anything worth doing. But China's robot obsession isn't just for fun, it's basically a survival strategy. The country is just 20 years away from a cataclysmic labour shortage. The country's workforce has been declining since 2012, and it is approaching a much sharper precipice as the older generation retires and a generation born during the one-child policy becomes its primary factory fodder. Simply put, there aren't nearly enough humans to sustain the astonishing manufacturing output that has fueled China's rise to an eminent global power. The CCP cannot magic working-age adults from the ether, and they ain't going to import them from other countries like the aging welfare states of Europe have. So they have no choice but to bet big on the bots. China's workforce of the future might be accompanied on the factory floor by the robot replacement siblings that the government took from them. It's a big gamble, but it'll take another decade or so to see if it pays off. These are significant milestones, though, in the world of robotics. But the real question remains, what's coming first? A robot butler who could bring me a cold Coca-Cola while I'm gaming, or a robot soldier who will crush my windpipe like a Coke can to stop me screaming. Else places in August, this stuff was happening.
President Putin, will you stop killing civilians?
Trump met with Putin on the Alaska tarmac to discuss how hard he was going to let him win in Ukraine. Bolsonaro loyalists in Brazilian Congress staged a protest against their dear leader's recent house arrest, covering their eyes, mouth and ears with tape, with this guy going all out. And France was thrust into fresh political crisis when the Fifth Republic was trapped in its longest period of legislative gridlock since the last time this happened.
Bonjour à tous, je voulais remercier les équipes de Konami et notre rencontre à la Japan Expo. J'ai toujours ma carte.
While his chosen prime minister looked set to be banished to the Shadow Realm, President Emmanuel Macron was busy reaching out to the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship in Paris. According to French opinion polls, Teflon Macron might be the most unpopular leader currently on Earth. But his knack for political survival is unparalleled. And it looks like he'll be here to duel for another day.
Violence on the streets of Jakarta. Friday night saw more protests and anger against a range of cost of living related issues.
And now we turn to the great state of Indonesia, a country I don't think I've ever mentioned before in any end of year video. This year, the capital city of Jakarta overtook Tokyo to become the most populous city on Earth. And considering that Indonesia is already the fourth most populous country in the world, I'd argue that per capita, it's the population that the English-speaking world is least interested in. But that shouldn't be the case because Indonesia is fascinating, and they demanded the whole world's attention in August as it was the staging ground for the first of the Gen Z straw hat uprisings. Tensions were already high at the start of the year when student protesters in Jakarta got worked up about the cost of living and tax increases. In late July, truck drivers in East Java began flying the Jolly Roger pirate flag from the anime One Piece to protest new transport reforms and their rising cost. This trend went viral on TikTok and Twitter, leading to politicians expressing their disapproval and eventually claiming that it posed a threat to national unity. In a show of defiance, the Jolly Roger was raised all over Jakarta, sometimes alongside or even directly above the sacred national flag, which was technically an illegal act of defiance. Luffy's flag had become a powerful symbol of real-life resistance. I should probably take this moment to say, I have never watched or read One Piece, and you cannot make me. But from what I've gathered, it's about pirates looking for a big old treasure, and it's set on an island-packed world run by an insidious group of elites. So I can see why it resonated with Gen Z Indonesians. Authorities attempted to crack down, raiding flag makers in Java, while banners were erected to warn against the use of fictional flags, which only served to make the anime merch a more potent symbol of resistance. Then, in August, the House of Representatives gave ordinary Indonesians something to raise the flag about. After voting to significantly raise their own salaries, the House broke out in a jubilant dance number to celebrate themselves getting richer. Bad move.
Pintu tol Pejombongan tuh teman tuh, liatin.
This sparked days of violent rioting and even more violent suppression by the police. On the 30th of August, those dancing politicians got what was coming to them, when a mob stormed some of their homes and looted them for booty. They may not have found the One Piece, but they did get away with some designer handbags, a few Labubus, and a full Iron Man suit that one DPR member had been showing off on social media. And unlike the writers of One Piece, Indonesians didn't need 25 years to come up with a decent finale. They rang out the end of the month by torching government buildings. perhaps unaware that they'd started a fire that was about to spread across our own blue planet.
Nepal is ours, and its future is in our hands.
Okay, September was a rough one. Charlie Kirk got murked, the Rapture got rescheduled, and Notre Dame got reburnt in miniature form.
نطالب الحكومة الفرنسية بإطلاق سراح أخينا إبراهيم العيساوي.
These French jihadis threatened to burn down the newly renovated Notre Dame in this poorly lit video, and did so with a cute little diorama. Turns out it was one of those 3D jigsaws that you can get in tourist shops, making it hard for me to focus on the threat, as I just wondered if they had fun making it. Meanwhile, in Saudi Arabia, the Riyadh Comedy Festival hosted the best comedians that oil money could buy. Also, Andrew Schultz was there. MBS really tried to dismember Saudi Arabia's old reputation this year, with hopes to make like Dubai and persuade wealthy Westerners to vacation in the petrodollar dictatorship in hastily built hotels with booze-free minibars. Unrelated to that, they also executed over 350 people this year, a new personal best for those sword-swinging Saudis. But those are rookie numbers compared to China's, whose execution count is a state secret, but independent estimates put it in the thousands. In September, though, they signed a very public execution order for their former Minister of Agriculture for taking bribes. Based. It really has been a bonza year for Chinese propaganda on the English-speaking internet. Streamers visited and had the red carpet and Little Red Book rolled out for them.
Oh, no way! It's a small one.
And it's the first version.
It's the first. Wait.
Yeah. Really?
Is that a Bible?
No, that's a Little Red Book.
And if you like robots, drone shows, and cities that look like the inside of a gaming PC, they had viral video clips for you to gawk at too. But in September, they got up to some old school propaganda, with a military parade that made America's look like a three-legged horse being shot on the side of a freeway. It really had everything. New weapons, a slavish devotion to symmetry, and Big Xi doing his best Mao impression with the old sunroof salute. This was all part of their V-Day celebrations, which 26 foreign leaders attended, including Putin and North Korea's fattest man. A notable guest this year, though, was Nepali Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, who arrived just as his whole country went absolutely loco. On the 4th of September, the government of Nepal ordered the shutdown of all major social media platforms. This turned out to be a very bad move. Nepal has some of the highest social media use in South Asia, and without the pacifying power of screen slop, there was nothing stopping Gen Z from burning the whole country down. As in Indonesia, social media has also made the Nepali population aware of the privileged lifestyles of politicians and their Nepo baby kids.
It's not earned money, it's looted money. Looted from us, the Nepali people. They live in luxury, we struggle to survive. They buy Hilton hotels, we can't afford rent.
This anti-elite undercurrent has been festering all year, but the ban was also a practical impediment. It made it harder for Nepali citizens working abroad to send cash back home, which is a vital source of household income for 33% of families. Organised youth groups took to Discord to plan their revolt against the ban, as apparently authorities didn't know enough about Discord to ban that too. Days later, tens of thousands gathered in the capital of Kathmandu, where things immediately went south. Authorities guarding the parliament building shot protesters dead and injured many more, enraging the growing crowd.
I can talk in English, I can talk in Nepali, whatever the fuck you want.
In a country with a median age of 25 and high youth unemployment, It wasn't long before numbers swelled on the Kathmandu streets for the ultimate showdown.
This is the area of the parliament. Same thing as Indonesia.
Now, bit of ordinary things lore here. I actually lived in Kathmandu for quite a long time after the 2015 earthquake. Look how cute I was. So full of hope. So it was nostalgic for me to see videos of that city again. And also kind of gratifying, because I cannot overstate how bad the corruption and incompetence was when I was there. Nepal is the most beautiful country I've ever been to, hands down, filled with kind, wonderful people who are in a daily grind for survival. Every day I spent in Kathmandu was fresh evidence of a government and upper class hell-bent on enriching themselves at the cost of their people's basic comfort. So I can personally attest that what was happening this September was long overdue. Nepal's Gen Z Straw Hat Uprising was the most chaotic and complete dismantling of a country's elite institutions in modern memory. One familiar character from earlier in the year showed up to get the crowd amped for the day's destructive events. In the morning, protesters disarmed authorities and stormed the federal parliament building, setting it on fire. The mob then set its sights on private residence, much like in Indonesia. The Prime Minister's home was raided and set on fire too. The home of a former Prime Minister and other top officials were targeted as well. With every road out of the city blocked, some ministers were able to escape via helicopter. The sight of helicopters whisking away the political elite became a defining image of the uprising and fueled further rage. The Prime Minister resigned and fled to a military base outside the capital city, while the officials who weren't lucky enough to get the last chopper out were forced to face the wrath of the crowd. Naturally, there was one confused British tourist there to document the collapse of a country he just arrived in.
I cannot believe my eyes right now. The whole of Parliament is on fire.
The ruling Communist Party's headquarters was raided and had their flag torn down. The country's biggest media house was torched, and so was one of the city's only luxury hotels. Even the car dealerships weren't safe. It was an all-consuming fire, fueled by social media, and not just by its ban, but by years of spiraling resentment fostered by an elite class who were shamelessly using it to flaunt their lifestyle. A lifestyle funded by corruption, in a country where 1 in 5 young people are jobless and 25% of GDP comes from its own citizens working in Gulf state labour camps. By September 10th, rage had simmered. Over 70 people had lost their lives, the government had been completely overthrown, and the army was restoring order to a restless young city. This fire had been stoked, ignited, and then was extinguished by social media, as people used it to organise the cleanup as well. With the country's organisational infrastructure in tatters, an interim leader was elected on Discord. God! So what else happened in September? Let me just, Oh yeah! A Meta Live AI demonstration made Marky Zuck look like a schmuck when his dumbass spyware glasses failed to do anything useful.
Let's see what happens. That's too bad. I don't know what happened.
Who remembers that Lord Miles guy?
Play market cycle thing.
Well, he was streaming himself doing a water fast in cooperation with Polymarket. He ate nothing, only drank water, and documented his every moment, including piss breaks. And pretty much the only person watching was me. The odds were against him, but after clearing 30 days without food, it was looking good. But then those betting against him found his location and got him busted. Probably wasn't a good idea to be doing his tent-based gambling experiment in Saudi Arabia, where things like that are frowned upon. At time of recording, he is currently still in Saudi custody. So, mashallah, Miles, hopefully see you next year.
6 days, almost 5 days to rapture time.
And over on TikTok, a bunch of people convinced themselves that the rapture was on its way, specifically on the 23rd or 24th of September, depending on your time zone. The trend was started by a South African preacher who told his followers the date was revealed to him by God or whatever. His end of the world reached millions on TikTok, provoked ridicule from most, but also some genuine delusions from others that Daddy Jesus was coming back to save them from their DoorDash debt.
It just started. Hold on. If you're seeing this, I'm probably dead.
Now, some of you have probably fast-forwarded to this moment just to see how I would deal with it. But unfortunately, we do now have to turn to the assassination of Charlie James Kirk by the coward Tyler Robinson. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but it was probably the most crazy-making moment of the year. Charlie's was a tragic and cruel fate that I would wish on no one, and obviously I can't show you the footage, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that most of you sickos have already seen it, and if you're as sick as me, you've seen it from several different angles. I don't think there's much point in re-examining the events of the day, because personally I think the death, and indeed life, of Charlie Kirk isn't anywhere near as interesting as his strange internet afterlife, as politicians, podcasters, and posters of the shit variety all used his image for their own gain. In fact, people found ways to profit from his death minutes after the fatal shot was fired, as witnesses looted Turning Point hats from the scene as souvenirs. The assassination shook the internet, and many of his opponents could barely contain their glee. While internet sleuths turned their attention to the shooter, with each side of the political spectrum attempting to materialise a suspect that represented all the things they already hated. Even after the likely shooter had been arrested, even late-night hosts were guilty of projecting their own hopes and hatred onto him.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
With his widow choosing to hold a stadium-set Christian rock concert to send her husband off with sparklers. Now, some might have found it odd to commemorate Charlie with a WWE-style send-off, but anyone who knew Kirk or watched any of his content would probably agree this kind of tasteless, attention-seeking spectacle was exactly what Charlie would have wanted.
And you can see from behind me, this is a recreation of the tent where Charlie Kirk lost his life at Utah University in September, and people are taking selfies with it.
Analysis of the killer's bullet casings were insights into a mind that had been deeply deranged by niche corners of the internet. References to a 12-year-old furry-bashing meme, video games, and anti-fascist World War II songs, but also simply the phrase, "If you're reading this, you're gay." Aidan Walker said it first and best. The shooting itself was a shitpost.
This was a shitpost. It was designed to be maximally disruptive and incomprehensible, cloaked in layer upon layer of irony so that nobody would know what he really meant unless they were our guy. This performs a kind of nihilism that plays really, really well on particular image boards and Discord servers where this guy spent most of his life.
So it's sadly probably in line with what his killer intended, but Kirk's image has become a bad taste AI shitpost. In the age of AI generation, if you make one person a saint or martyr, you are giving their enemies a holy image to deface and degrade. The image of George Floyd has been used in similar fashion 5 years after his own death, while Kirk has been borrowed for AI music that sounds sincere, bad taste mashups with Jeffrey Epstein, and genuinely surreal stuff that just boggles the mind. The strange AI afterlife of Charlie Kirk is fascinating.
Charlie Kirk, we carry the flame. We'll fight for the
To be Kirkified isn't to be killed from a long distance, it's to have your image tastelessly degraded through AI manipulation. And he won't be the last person to receive this treatment. In fact, if you visit the dark corners of the internet that inspired his killer, you'll find threads devoted to the AI defacement of ordinary people. Mostly young women in the fashion that you'd probably expect. This is a grave danger of uncontrolled AI image generation. Our image is no longer our own. Anyone with their image online is now in the firing line for Kirkification. It's just a matter of time. October arrived, and frankly, actually, was a bit samey. Like staring hopelessly into the bowl of a backed up toilet, it left me thinking, haven't I seen some of this shit before? Pakistan got into yet another border clash, but this time with their other neighbour, Afghanistan.
Disa më kanë quajtur antikushtetuese nga që nuk jam njeri. Kjo më ka lënduar.
There was more AI mania when the AI-generated Minister of Albania, yes, that's real, announced that she was pregnant with 83 babies. The youth of Madagascar kept the flag flying in the middle of the month when another anime-inspired, leaderless coalition took to the streets to protest the country's dark weeks. Prolonged water and electricity outages that could last 20 hours, exacerbated by the country's already extreme poverty. The regime offered to open a dialogue with the movement, which was firmly rejected on social media. It looked like another domino was falling in the internet-enabled Gen Z revolt against the establishment. But seeing as this was an African uprising, it took about 2 weeks before this leaderless revolt turned into a classic coup. The military's elite CAPSAT unit, the same one that deposed the last leader in 2009, announced that they were down with the kids and joined them in the crowded streets, before crowding the classic and iconic coup announcement table moments later. The Gen Z protesters remained at the kiddie table. Some more optimistic analysts have described this as a coup-volution, and hey, maybe. We'll have to see what happens after the 18-month, maybe 24-month transitional period that the military council have given themselves to redo the republic, sort out the energy crisis, and maybe hold a few presidential pool parties. Let's wait and see. On the 19th, thieves disguised as construction workers committed a daring daylight heist at the most visited museum in the world. This was the Louvre robbery, an ingenious caper where a 4-man team used a furniture lift to access the not-so-secure room where the French crown jewels were kept. They escaped with approximately 88 million euros worth of shiny rocks, including the crown of Louis XV. They spent an impressively snappy 4 minutes snatching the jewels, before undercutting that slightly with their slow, documented descent to their escape scooters. During their motor scooter-bound escape, the robbers dropped the crown of Empress Eugenie in the street, meaning that yes, someone actually found a French crown in the gutter. If they also picked it up with their sword, the Iberian Peninsula better brace itself. Bit of niche history humour there for you, and I'm sure any Napoleon nerds watching appreciated it. Demi. Police arrived at the scene, cordoning off the crane, and starting France's highest profile investigation in years. Over 100 people were apparently assigned to investigate the case, which didn't include this dapper individual photographed at the scene. Internet onlookers mistook this chap for a French detective, but he was actually just a random teenager posing while passing through. Without any real gentleman detectives on hand, headway on the case was made, but not fast enough. 2 suspects were arrested on the 25th and partially admitted to taking part, with one caught attempting to flee to Algeria at Charles de Gaulle Airport. The remaining 2 suspects were not arrested until November, but by then the priceless jewels that they had made off with were still missing, and in likelihood, they will never be recovered in their historic form. The gold and platinum were probably melted down within 48 hours, while the diamonds and other stolen stones would have been removed from their setting, cut down and sold on the black market. These pieces of French history are now permanent casualties to this footnote in heist history. So what else happened in October? Well, in a literal sense, lots, but in terms of what I'm interested in, that was kind of dry. JD Vance proved that he was in on the joke on the 31st, which was something, I guess. The second Israel-Gaza ceasefire of the year began on October 13th, with the US-backed plan for peace either skeptically embraced or passively accepted by the international community. The US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, celebrated by performing a reworked version of Sweet Home Alabama as Sweet Home Jerusalem. And this image of a rabbit holding a pocket watch went viral across Twitter and TikTok, used to imply that time was running out, or that an ominous event was on the horizon. Gee, I wonder what that could be. In November, we drove headfirst into things we should have seen coming. I mean, the writing was literally on the wall. Starbucks apologised when their limited edition Barista coffee cups sold out so fast that fights broke out between customers who wanted it.
Everyone needs to shut the fuck up about that fucking bear cup.
Adolf Hitler was successfully elected. For the 5th time, actually. The unfortunately named Namibian politician Adolf Hitler Unona won his seat as councillor with 85% of the vote.
Beastland, my brand new theme park, opens up in less than 24 hours. This thing is the craziest thing I've ever done. I can't wait for you guys to experience this.
Jimmy Donaldson announced and then opened Sharia Beastland in Saudi Arabia, themed to look like what a mosquito sees when it plows into a bug zapper. Jimmy justified the location for his neo-tinted content caliphate as a geographical convenience, because his audience is global, you see, and Saudi Arabia is in the middle of the globe. Conveniently located for the morbidly curious tourist, as Beastland was located just 24 minutes from Deira Square, aka Chop Chop Square, where Saudi Arabia used to publicly conduct their beheadings. But as we know, the Saudis are modernising. They haven't done a public chop chop since 2022. During his visit to the White House, MBS even suggested a jokey indifference to the very haram topic of gambling and prediction markets.
Someone told me that there is in some of the bidding sites that they are bidding on me wearing black suits, and if you bid on me wearing black suits and coming here with the black suits, they're gonna get almost 17x. So I want to tell them, sorry, you lose the bet.
Prediction markets went seriously mainstream in November. Google announced that it was integrating live prediction market data into its search function, while Kalshi signed a multi-year deal with CNN to be their exclusive provider of data based on degenerates betting on stuff. It's almost like everything is gambling now. Who could have predicted this?
Go on, us. You got my vote. Yes, let's go for him. Yes.
Oh, vote for this guy. You are the best, man.
Prediction market data was further validated by the New York City mayoral election market, which collectively processed over $4 million on Polymarket and Kalshi. While traditional polls were sheepish on Mamdani's win, prediction markets were bullish from the get-go. Mamdani ran a fierce campaign, both online and in real life.
I've been watching you.
But his mastery of vertical video formats combined with a man-on-the-street mentality meant his competitors could only mimic him poorly. Zoran won so hard at the local election that the big dog took notice and gave him the F-word fast pass for the afternoon.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay, you can just say yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Meanwhile, in Mexico, the final entry in our Straw Hat Gen Z Uprising series was released to an excited public. On November 1st, Mayor Carlos Manzo was shot dead at a candle-lit Day of the Dead ceremony. Running as an independent in 2024, he'd been a popular figure due to his fiery criticism of President Claudia Sheinbaum's approach to the cartels. She has generally focused on the rule of law and securing criminal prosecutions as a way to counter the cartels, while Manzo explicitly ordered immediate lethal force in retaliation for gang violence, fighting lead with lead. Manzo is the 10th high-level official to be killed like this since Sheinbaum took office, the 7th in 2025 alone. His death became a litmus test for Mexican politics. You can see it as a consequence of his own eye-for-an-eye style, or you can see him as another victim of Sheinbaum and her government's soft-touch, hugs-not-slugs approach. Regardless, Those who saw things Manzo's way showed their anger immediately. When the governor arrived at Manzo's funeral, he was forced to leave after 5 minutes following a less than welcoming reception. Over the next week, massive demonstrations were held in Manzo's home state, with protesters storming the local government palace, sporting Manzo's signature look. A march on the 7th drew 70,000 people, where Manzo's wife gave a speech days after assuming his old position as mayor. But it was the more sparsely attended march in Mexico City, culminating at the National Palace, that drew the world's attention. Once again, straw hat flags were out in full force. Not too surprising considering anime's long-time popularity in Mexico. America may have gotten a lot weebier in the last decade, but mainstream Mexican culture has been soaked in the stuff since the 80s. The English language internet didn't really know what to make of the protest at first, while people like me tried to catch up on the context. Which wasn't made easy by the pick and mix approach that some protesters had adopted with the symbols they were sporting. If you were scrolling passively that day, you might have heard that this was a Gen Z, anti-corruption, anti-cartel, anti-Semitic, Chinese communist-backed revolution/riot/mostly peaceful tea party. While English language media and Twitter accounts just learning what Mexico is were keen to paint this as another Gen Z revolt against the establishment stemming from social media. But that's not really what this was. This was a very local issue, and its protesters were cross-generational. This wasn't just about class or disconnected elites enriching themselves. While corruption is certainly part of the story, and stamping it out may well be part of the solution, really this is the same conversation that Mexico and its Central American neighbours have been having for decades. The cartels and the best way to neutralise them. Now, with Nayib Bukele's apparent success in El Salvador, many in Central America are understandably wondering whether a more militarised, extrajudicial response is the answer. Luffy's flag might have been waving in full force, but not for quite the same reasons that it was in Asia and Africa. The straw hat, though, did also coincidentally rhyme with Manzo's own iconic sombrero. So it was a mix of traditional Mexican agrarian symbolism and global pop culture iconography. And that just goes to show you how broadly this symbol can be applied. The Jolly Roger can basically be unfurled for any anti-establishment cause. So I strongly doubt that this is the last revolt we'll see it fly over. December has been ominous, to say the least. Like a lot of this year, or indeed a shat pant, it has been hammocked with the weight of unwelcome movements. So let's drop trow and fish the last of them out, shall we? Sydney Sweeney fell on her front in Turkey, leaving behind what looked like a pair of massive sinkholes caused by extreme drought. This Chinese live streamer tortured himself in a panopticon of his own making, as an audience of thousands donated pennies to keep him breaking mass-produced pottery in a stairwell at 3 AM. What has this got to do with anything? I don't know, but it's my favourite video of the year. Look at him go! And yes, there were yet more Epstein files released. And they were juicy, but once again, they were filled with more decrepit old guys and ominous black bars than the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey. The still censored Epstein releases protected the identities of victims, which is good, but they also covered up the image of politically exposed individuals and government officials. Almost like it was some kind of government cover-up. Weird! Oh, and Thailand and Cambodia got right back into it on their shared border, just when I thought I was done writing this video. What started as a petty squabble over who owned a cool-looking cliff with a temple on it has developed into a hot war on call center cyber scammers. Yeah, you heard that right. The Thai military are now calling it their war on scammers, using airstrikes and artillery to bomb casinos, scam centers, luxury hotels, and also this gold horse. Apparently, the border town of Poi Phet is a hotbed for casino-owning kingpins and organised cybercrime, especially call centres that mostly target Chinese citizens. Now, is this a sincere attempt by the Thai military to crack down on the crank callers? Or is it a sneaky way to justify bombing more of Cambodia with China's tacit approval? I'd put a gamble on the latter. And one scam decided to put it all on red by raising a Chinese flag in the hopes that it would deter further attacks by implying that there were some Chinese citizens in there doing the scams. This is a surreal, still developing situation that I had to throw something together quite quickly on, so sorry if I don't know much about it. In other news, this Chinese CEO of a robotics company, Engine, showed off his new robot by letting it autonomously kick his ass. A Tesla bot took a similar tumble when the cyber slave teleoperating it decided he didn't want to be an expensive water dispenser no more. A perfect moment, poetically symbolising the smoke and mirrors of our high-tech dystopia. I mean, could there be a better image to epitomise current year? Turns out, yes. A crappy knockoff of an iconic symbol representing American democracy and welcoming immigrants in collapsed in a parking lot in South America, all while the real symbol of American cultural supremacy stands strong in the background. For our final story this year, and thank you for sticking with me all this way, we turn to what may or may not end up being the defining story of 2026. America versus Venezuela, the war nobody asked for. Earlier in the year, the Trump administration started things off by framing the heavy crude oil-rich nation as a fentanyl-shipping narco state, essentially giving the newly renamed Department of War carte blanche to blow up some drug-smuggling boats and giving Pete Hegseth the opportunity to showboat about it. This is despite the fact that America's fentanyl overwhelmingly arrives from Mexico, produced with precursor chemicals from China. But facts are taking a back seat to narrative on this one.
The future of American warfare is here, and it's spelled AI.
An aspect of the story that I thought flew under the radar, though, was how the US and big tech's favourite military contractors were joining the propaganda war.
And I'm not saying other people agree with this, but when people are attacking our soldiers for stopping fentanyl from coming to this country, I want people to remember, if fentanyl was killing 60,000 Yale grads instead of 60,000 working class people, we'd be dropping a nuclear bomb on whoever was sending it from South America.
Palantir CEO Alex Karp has been juicing his public presence this year with podcast appearances, outrageous statements, and some swashbuckling swordsmanship. He and people like Palmer Luckey represent a strange new breed. They are turning the military-industrial complex into the military-influencer complex. Although whether these guys are the best spokesmen for America's new pseudo-war on drugs is dubious to say the least.
And that's a huge problem. Like, if you make, so I think the real version is, I made a lot of decisions
When Alex Karp made this appearance in early December, his sudden amnesia regarding proper use of a chair raised some questions about his own chemical consumption. His masterful retort to this was to low-key call his critics ableist by starting a neurodiversity fellowship for fellow autists who can't sit good. Sorry, got a bit distracted there, but Alex Karp is my hyperfixation at the moment, easily the most fascinating figure in big tech at the moment. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Venezuela. While the boat raids continued in December, the pretense that this was all about fentanyl became a bit less convincing, especially when the US started seizing tankers carrying millions of gallons worth of heavy crude. Naturally, all this pressure has gotten to President Maduro, who started soothing himself at a rally.
Don't worry, be happy.
La 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 la. Don't worry, be happy. La 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 la.
To prove that his country was capable of countering an American drone onslaught, he also showed off pieces of a gaming PC on live TV. When the Trump administration decided to designate fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, everything was feeling a little 2003.
You remember they took all of our energy rights, they took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back.
It's a good thing Dick Cheney died in November, because if he'd seen how brazenly this administration were making the play for more petrol, he'd have died anyway from the world's hardest hard-on. Announcing a surprise address to the nation, it looked like Trump was about to declare war. Instead, he completely sunk my Polymarket bet and announced that he was going to start the Hunger Games instead.
In the fall, we will host the first ever Patriot Games, an unprecedented 4-day athletic event featuring the greatest high school athletes, one young man and one young woman from each state and territory.
The closest he actually got to declaring war was announcing that all soldiers everywhere would get a nice little Christmas bonus, possibly to take their mind off the fact that it could well be their last. In response, Maduro and Venezuela are getting fighty as well, preparing for a grueling guerrilla war if necessary. But if you've been paying attention to this whole year, which I hope you have, this move to a war footing is not an America-only issue. China has been doing semi-regular practice-run invasions of Taiwan, with each one getting scarier and more choreographed than the last. Japan and Germany are rearming to a level that they haven't been really allowed to since that time they tried to kill everyone, and basically every other major economy is doing something similar, increasing military spending and modernizing their forces.
The night around us has indeed grown dark. The old evil is once again rearing its head.
Conflict is at our door. Russia has brought war back to Europe. And we must be prepared for the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured.
This is the major historical development of 2025. The whole world is nervously getting ready to do war again. And that's why I want to present this as the final image of the year. This is the city of Lyman in eastern Ukraine, glistening in the early morning as the fibre optic drone cables covering every rooftop catch the sun. This is Lyman's present, and it could be our future. But it doesn't have to be. Peace is not the natural state of man. Our species was born into, sustained by, and made supreme by the spoils of war. Peace doesn't happen by accident. It is an inheritance gifted to us by previous generations who weren't always war-free, but there were always those who strived to be. Peace is the product of full bellies, family ties, and forgiveness, even when it didn't feel fair. It's easy to be pessimistic about the times we live in, as it always is, but it is easy because pessimism is just another word for giving up. Do not give in to nostalgia. It's admitting defeat for your future. Move forward, contribute in whatever way you can, and most of all, don't let the bastards grind you down. I'll see you in 2026. And don't forget to check out Planet Wild. If you sign up, you'll immediately see the difference you've made in less than 30 days here on YouTube. If you want to see them in action, check out their latest mission, fighting ocean plastic waste, right here.